Welcome to Profit and Prosper, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to make some money while doing what they love. On this podcast, we're going to pull back the curtain and talk about all things business and money. But I promise you, this is not your typical boring numbers talk. I'm your host, Sarah Young, a CPA and CFO with over a decade of experience in finance, business, and leadership. I'm going to share everything I've learned from helping my clients grow more profitable businesses and keep more of what they earn while growing my own successful business along the way. You'll feel empowered and confident that you too can grow your wealth, live a rich life, and have an impact. Stick with me and you might even start to think that finance is fun. Let's dive in. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Profit and Prosper podcast. This is episode number 69. So I really was trying to practice saying that out loud before I started recording, and I couldn't do it without giggling a little bit. And so apparently I also have a little bit of a dirty mind. I bet you did not know that about me. That's actually like a side note. I've had people ever since I decided to shift my business structure around and start doing some of the things and saying some of the things that I really want to say. I've had people comment on the energy that is, that I have. And I think it's fun. I think it's just a sign of do the things that you love to do. Say what you want to say and you'll make more money. You'll be happier. You'll spend your time doing things you want to do. And you'll apparently have a dirty mind. So moving on. So today we will be wrapping up the Make More Money series with part 3 of 3. So if you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, go back to episodes 67 and 68 and go check those out. But part 3 is about sustainable success. And in part 2, you heard me mention the idea of growth mode and profit mode. And so for growth mode to be successful, you have to have a profit mode. And that's really what sustainability is about. Right? So we're going to talk about in this episode 4 areas that you need to focus on to create that profit mode, to create the sustainability in your business, to make sure that it lasts. And if you've heard me talk about sustainability in your business before, you've heard me focus a lot about cash flow and savings and all of that. And I still think that is incredibly important. But we're also going to talk about some other areas that I personally find are really crucial to sustainability in terms of you, the CEO, having the time and energy and bandwidth to run your business for the long haul, okay, and not get burned out. So we're going to talk about those 4 areas. Before we do, just a reminder that this week, when this episode comes out, this week we will be in week 1 of my brand new program, the 6-Figure Profit Blueprint. I am not one of those people who ever wants to do hard launches, hard cart open, cart closed, like none of that, because to me, that is not sustainable to do the launching model. I'll do stuff like this where I'm like soft launching, but like I'm never going to do the big launches because that's just not my vibe. Okay. That's sustainable to me. So I say that because if you haven't joined and you've been thinking about it, then I want you to go and apply because it's still open. I will still let you in. I'm still so excited for you to come in, even if you're a few days late, if you've been on the fence, come and join. And as a bonus, I'm not going to actually put this in the show notes. I want to put this only for the people who are listening. But if you apply, and then send me a DM on Instagram and mention that you heard me say this on the podcast, I will give you the bonus that I offered to everybody for joining in the first round before June 12th. I had a bonus, which was an extra one-on-one session with me, which I currently only offer rarely for at least $1,000. So I'm offering it for free. So if you mention it, if you send me a DM and say, I heard you say this on Instagram and I want that, you will get that for free. Okay. So that by itself is, worth like almost half the cost of the program itself. So hopefully, if you've been on the fence, mention that and I will happily give it to you. And if you're listening to the podcast and you've already joined and you want to take advantage of that podcast listener bonus, send me a DM on Instagram and I will give it to you too. Why not? Okay, so let's talk about sustainability. Like I said, it's really about being in it for the long haul. And this is something that has taken me, y'all, it's taken me 4+ years of being an entrepreneur to even begin to unwind is all of the ways that I was taught, that I was socialized to always be working, to always be giving to other people and not to take time for myself, right? So it's a mix of all kinds of different things with how I personally was raised. I know a lot of you are the same way. I can't even begin to layer on, if you are a person of color, all of the other things that you also have to overcome when it comes to thinking like we have to work hard for money and who am I to be rich, and really putting the pieces into place to have sustainable success. I think there's a lot of things to overcome, and I think that it's really important. So I want to talk about the 4 things, the 4 areas where I feel we need to focus on for sustainability. And so number 1, obviously, this is not one of the 4, but all the things I talked about previously in part 1 and part 2, those are necessary. I left these sustainable pieces for phase 3 because I wanted to design the blueprint process to give you some really quick wins. I want you to implement with messy action. I want you to make some changes early and fast, and then come back later and then work on the sustainability piece. And so, I obviously don't want you to be coming up with new offers and like making these huge shifts in your business all the time. But I want you to still implement the sustainability piece. So to have a sustainable business, obviously we need to go through phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1, or part 1, if you go back and listen to episode 67, again, it's about stripping it back to the foundation of what are the things that you must keep doing and letting go of everything else. And so we do that in the blueprint. We're doing it with an audit of looking at all of the areas of your business and what you're doing, and identifying what are the things that I'm doing that don't make me money that I can let go of for now. Okay. And this can be scary. That part, I didn't say this in that episode, but like this part can be the hardest part for people, is acknowledging that they've put time and energy into things that don't serve them and like letting them go. That is a scary thing. To first acknowledge it and then to let it go. But I promise you, we've all done it. I've wasted time. I've wasted tons of money on things, and I will tell you anything you want to know about doing it, but it doesn't serve you to keep hanging on to them. Okay, so that's phase 1. Phase 2 is really about developing the business model, making the shift from being self-employed, being a solopreneur, to having an actual business. And so putting those pieces in place, defining the business model, hiring the team, getting all the pieces so that you can really truly be a CEO. Okay, that's what phase 2 was about. And then phase 3 is sustainability. So how can we shift ourselves, back into this phase of profit mode, having places where we can just kind of sit and relax a little bit and have our business relax a little bit and still make money. But this is how we make it in the long term, right? Like we can't constantly be in growth mode. You can't constantly be working 80-hour weeks and expect to do that day in and day out. Like I used to do that in the corporate world. I have no idea. I have no idea how I did it and how my brain worked. It probably didn't work. Let's be honest. So 4 things that we need to focus on to make your business sustainable. I think the first thing is your schedule. And so you'll hear some of these things I say in this section. They will be really reflective of a lot of the things I said in phase 1 about the areas that we're going to audit. They're not exactly the same, but they are really similar. So your schedule is obviously really, really crucial to making sure that you are spending time in a way that is the most efficient as possible so that you can work as little as possible, but still make money and only do the things that you must do and have extra time. Part 2 is about continuing to think about mindset and habits. So in phase 1, I'm really introducing these areas of like time management and mindset more because I want you to, like on the time management front, I want you to take things out of your calendar and just be okay with doing the bare minimum. On your mindset, I want you to start acknowledging and recognizing the mindsets that don't serve you. And then we're going to come back in phase 3 and work on layering things on top of that. So with your schedule, we're going to revamp your schedule and make sure that it is structured the right way. With your mindset and with your habits, we're going to take it to the next level and not just be aware and acknowledge that the mindsets are happening, that you're doing the habits that are not serving you, but we're going to start to reframe them. And so that's really a whole next level skill of like, it's one skill by itself to acknowledge the mindset and see it happening. It's a whole other layer to start to reframe it. All right. Specifically in this section, I want to talk to you about the mindset stuff is one piece, but also about the habits, the money habits that I see millionaires have, that the clients I work with have, and me that I have. That's actually, on a side note, it's actually a good, segue from mindset. Like me even saying out loud that I have a net worth of $1 million, that has been an edgy thing for me to say because of my own mindset issues around sharing it. But I do have a net worth of over $1 million at this point, so you can call me a millionaire, which is crazy. And I want to talk about the money habits that wealthy people, that millionaires have. And so I don't just mean wealthy people in general, but specifically business owners. So in my agency, we work with multi-7 and 8-figure entrepreneurs, people who have highly profitable businesses, people who profit $1 million a year. Can you imagine? I want to get there one day. People who profit, 7 figures a year. People who have real estate portfolios, who buy businesses. Like, what are the things that they do? Because I'm a huge fan of the book Atomic Habits. And one of the things that he talks about in that book is your identity and asking yourself, what would my goal identity do? What would they do in this situation? And so I want to talk about the things that wealthy people do and the things that I do to help me manage my money appropriately, right? So spending some time layering those things back in, now that you have set up the foundations, now that you have a business model that works, now we have space to layer more stuff in. Okay, so I was just realizing as I recorded this that I meant to give a quick overview of the 4 pieces and then go back through and talk about them in detail. And I went in detail about number 2. I went all off on a side note and forgot to do that for part 1. For number 1. So let me go over the overview so that it makes sense to you guys listening, and then we'll dive deeper. So schedule, your CEO schedule, your mindset and habits, your systems and processes, and your money management. Those are the 4 areas that we are going to focus on to make your business sustainable. So we're going to talk about the key things that you need to make it sustainable. Obviously, within the money management piece, you might have heard me talk about a lot of this on the podcast before, but in the blueprint, we're going to go deeper into a lot of that stuff. So I already talked about mindset and habits in great detail. So let me go back and talk about your schedule. When we think about designing a schedule that works, something that I do on a regular basis, like probably 3 times a year-ish, is I do a time audit. By doing a time audit, that's literally me specifically for my workday. I don't do it really for my personal time, although you could argue I should do that too. But I really, like for my business time, sometimes I do this in my planner because I have like an hour by hour section in my planner. Sometimes I do this in a Google Sheet, or I actually have bought this thing called a Timular, but that tracks your time for you. It's like a little cube you flip back and forth. It just depends on the mood. But like I'll write down or keep track of what I am spending my time on down to like 10, 15 minute increments during my day. And I tend to break up my schedule into buckets, right? Of like, what are the different tasks that I am responsible for? And so I didn't write down the whole list, but like it's going to change for everybody. But what I typically include is client delivery and meetings, because that for me, that is kind of the same. It used to not be. I used to have to do a lot of work and also have meetings. So I would have 2 buckets of that. But client delivery and meetings. I have team meetings and team management and review. I've got CEO project time. I have administrative time like email and managing ClickUp, for example. I have marketing time and then sales time. I'm probably forgetting some, but you can think about like as you go through your week, what are the main buckets of time? It's so great to do an audit and like track it for at least a week, a full week, if not 2 weeks, because you start to get a sense of either things that are taking a lot of your time that you didn't realize that they took you so much time. Sometimes I see that I'm getting distracted a lot. So like I'll get into a task and then 10, 15 minutes later, I'm getting distracted by something. And so that's obviously eating up my time too. Or, I might find that I'm spending time on things that aren't the main things that I need to focus on. And so I see it's very clear in an audit. So it's so helpful to have an audit done so that you know where your time is going and then redesign your schedule accordingly. And so this is where we're going to think about what are the working hours that you want? How many days of the week do you want to work? What hours do you want to work? And we're going to fill that in. I prefer to do a time blocking exercise of like limiting client meetings to certain times, to limiting emails to certain times, to having chunks of time for me to get into marketing or chunks of time to get into projects. I also know for myself, like I need time to do fun things in my business. I need time to explore new things. I need time to read. So making sure we build that into your schedule. And so do the audit, see the things you spend your time on, see about how long it takes you, and then we reorganize it into a calendar that works. And it is also in this section that I'm going to challenge you to delegate. So in part 2, we talked about hiring your key operational person. Now I'm going to challenge you every single week to sit down and think about what is something I can delegate today. One thing that you can delegate to your team member to actually utilize them. Because if you don't delegate, you're going to find that your schedule gets full really fast and you get back to working crazy hours again. And so we don't want that. The other thing that I'm really insistent on when it comes to a schedule is having time off and having days off, if that works for you. Like I'll take a day and go get a massage, or I'll take a day and go hiking with my husband on top of vacations. Or maybe it works better for you to take, the last week of the month and have no client calls whatsoever, right? Like whatever that looks like for you, we're going to build that into your schedule and then figure out how to fit everything else in around that. But ultimately, right, the schedule with how you're actually spending all of your days is just so, so crucial to managing your energy levels, right? Like I'm also in this section, actually just as I'm recording this episode, I'm literally going to add this like to the course. But one of the most crucial things that I have ever done for myself was get good sleep. And so we are going to build that into your schedule and really think about how are you going to make sure that you get good sleep by making sure you stop working at certain times, by turning off notifications on your phone, by going to bed at a certain time, right? Like we need to build that in. Like I'm literally adding that to the course as I go because I just realized like that is one of my all-time most important keys to my success. Okay, so there's your schedule, right? There's a lot. I probably could just take what I recorded and make that the lesson. So I hope you enjoyed that free lesson on scheduling. Anyways, let's move on. We already talked about mindset and habits and really what do wealthy people do and starting to reframe the way that you think and act in the way that they do. I went into depth on that, so I won't talk about it anymore. Number 3 is your systems and processes. And I put this here. It should land around week 13, 14 in my schedule. And I put it here because I'm hoping that it aligns with you having a team member coming on, or I want you to have your systems and processes somewhat laid out before you have them come onboarding. And so the hiring plan, or the hiring piece of phase 2 that we talked about last week, that should be around weeks 8 to 10. I'm literally pulling up my schedule. Yeah, so that's weeks 8 to 10. And so, it'll take easily a couple weeks to find the right person or like to get the job posted, get them interviewed, get them to agree to come work for you. And then usually they have to give notice at their old job. And so you've got some time, right? And so what we're going to talk about in this section, and really what you need to do for a sustainable business, is have your processes documented. And this goes with your onboarding and your team management because ultimately your team is the one who is going to be doing most of these processes for you, right? I'm going to be honest. I despise almost nothing else. Like I despise documenting processes. Like I hate it. It is just so boring. It's not what I want to spend my time doing. No offense to all of you systems people out there. I know how crucial it is. And so I'm going to give you, the high level overview of how to do this in the easiest and fastest way possible, because I don't want you to get bogged down in it. And ultimately, I actually feel like it's something that if you hire the right team member, they can help you document. But it's really crucial for having a profitable hire. They need to know what the heck they're doing when they come in to come work for you. And so that helps, or that means you need to have systems and processes laid out. So like when they first come in and they're like, okay, Sarah, what am I doing today? You're not like, I think you need to do this. And they're like flying by the seat of their pants all the time. They're not going to be successful. So we want to set them up to be successful. What I do when I'm good at documenting processes, because again, sometimes I don't, but when I'm being good, I do not do the full SOP myself. I actually have like very few full SOPs, and I'll probably hire somebody to do these for me because I hate it so much. But let me give you an example. I just hired a couple weeks ago a tax manager. And so as I have been doing things, like as I've been creating a tax plan, I will pull up Loom and I will take a screen share video of myself doing the tax plan, and I will narrate it as I'm going. And then I save that. I use ClickUp Docs because that's where all of our stuff live. You could put this in a Google Doc, but like I save it there and like have that there for her of like, hey, when you're going to do a tax plan, watch this video. Sometimes we have gone over things live on Zoom and I just record the Zoom and then put that as the SOP. And then as she gets onboarded, like one of the goals is going to be to take those videos and start actually writing down the steps of like, here's what you do, here's the things to look out for, et cetera, et cetera. Like it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to have a crazy technical training manual with like 100 steps documented. We just need to get enough down so that they know what they're doing. And the only other piece of advice I want to add in here is you need to probably be, in terms of giving your team direction with what to do and how to do it, you probably need to be at least like 3 times more clear and more specific than you think you need to be. So an example would be, hey, new tax manager, I need you to prep all our tax plans. That's a bad example, right? Because it's open-ended. In my mind, I know how to do that. I know which clients to do it for. I know when it needs to be done. But if I don't tell her, if she doesn't do it, then whose fault is it? It's my fault. This is my philosophy on team leadership, which I'm also putting in this section, is just best practices around managing teams. Like in my corporate life, my last team was like 20 to 25 people at any given time. And so I've managed some teams, y'all. I've worked with people. I've fired people. I'm going to give you best practices on team leadership. And a lot of it has to do with communicating your expectations around what to do and how to do it. And that is part of doing your systems and processes. That's why it's so crucial when you have a team. Obviously, for sustainability, this is not something we want to be like updating all the time, but it's something that as you plan to have somebody come on, like start thinking about as you go through your day, write down what are the things I'm doing that I want to start delegating. And then even after you onboard them, I'm going to keep challenging you, like, what is one more thing you can delegate every single week? All right, so let's move on to number 4, money management, my favorite. There's obviously a lot to money management. I wouldn't have a whole agency built around like money management if there wasn't a lot to it. But what I want you to know is that it's not as complex to manage your money as you might think that it is. Now, as your business grows, as your team gets bigger, as the cash coming in and out of your business grows from like, 10K months up to multiple 6-figure months and more, right? Like you're going to need more support because it will get more complicated, but to scale up to 20, 25K, 30K, like it's fairly straightforward, especially if you are in the 6-figure profit blueprint and you do the simple business model that makes you a lot of money. Like your stuff is not going to be that complicated. Now, I say that like knowing, I acknowledge I'm a money person, I'm a finance person. Like what's easy to me is hard to other people. But it's something you need to learn because, listen, if you want to grow your business, you are going to have to be able to hold the space for the big numbers flowing in and out of your bank account. And some of that is going to come from your mindset, but some of it is also going to come down to your money management skills, your ability to make quick CEO decisions about what to do. This is crucial, right, to being successful and sustaining that success in the long run. I think we can do this on a basic level without having clean financials. Now, caveat, you shouldn't be surprised to hear me say I think we need to have clean financials. Obviously, you need to have a tax return that's accurate. You need to not miss out on your deductions. You need to know your actual numbers. And I also don't think that it's reasonable for a lot of you, if you don't have up-to-date bookkeeping in a 16-week time period, like you're not going to clean up your books and do everything else I want you to do. So I acknowledge that. My goal is that for all of you, you make enough money that you have no qualms about paying a bookkeeper $300, $400, $500 a month to do your books for you. Like I want that to be a non-issue. I want you to just outsource it. Okay, that is my goal. Now, even if you outsource your bookkeeping, you still need to know how to evaluate your financials because bookkeepers are not going to be evaluating your financials for you. They're just getting the transactions in so that you can run their reports, right? Like they're making sure your bank accounts are reconciled. They're coding the transactions, but they're not the ones who are going to tell you what's happening. They shouldn't be, right? Like I hear people sometimes get really frustrated about their bookkeepers or even their tax preparers. Like they're not giving me insights. They're not telling me what's happening, how to interpret things. Like you're not paying them for that, right? Like that's a CFO, that's a tax strategist, not a bookkeeper or tax preparer. So you need to learn the skill of evaluating the way that your business is performing. And so in phase 2, we already talked about KPIs, about how to identify your goals and then identify the metrics that help you understand if you're on track to meeting those goals. That's obviously really crucial. We also want to be able to look at your financials and zoom out. Like I will teach you the things, like what are the things that I look at to evaluate financial statements so that I know if they're right or wrong. These are things I can teach you, right? There's like a checklist without you having to get into the weeds of your bookkeeping. And I think that there's ways that we can do this even if you don't have solid books already. I'm going to teach you the things that matter the most. And I'll just go ahead and tell you because why not? I like to tell people everything, right? We're obviously tracking sales. We're probably going to use the scorecards that you've already developed from phase 2 to track these things. So we're going to track sales because I want to see how much money is coming in, and it's not just sales in total, but I like to see the breakdown either by your offer. So if you have multiple offers, I want to see the sales numbers by offer or maybe by customer, depending on the business model. Again, it just depends. But I want to see the sales breakdown. That's really crucial. I want to see your expenses. I want to see the big categories of what's your team cost? What is your marketing cost? What are your other expenses? And if you had any other big investments, I probably want to call those out too. So we can say, we see them. Would we have been profitable with or without those investments? And did we get a return on those? Another thing I really want you to track to evaluate your financial performance is your cash balance. I want to know how much runway you have. This is part of money management, is sustainability, right? I haven't even gotten to the bank account piece, but we have to manage your cash, especially as you start hiring a team. We need to make sure that you're going to meet payroll. So I want to know, we talked about expenses and investments. How much is your ongoing overhead per month? And I want to make sure that you have that in your bank account at all times. Okay. We want to have at least 30 days at all times, building up to maybe another month or two in your savings account, maybe more depending on the business model, but most people are fine with 2 to 3 months total in cash of a runway. And so we're going to look at these metrics to say, like, how am I doing? Am I making sales? Am I spending less than I earn? Am I able to pay myself? And do I have enough cash in the bank to last me? And just looking at those handful of numbers, you're going to get a lot of insights from those. We're also going to look at trends over time. So I tend to track this on a 12, 13 month lag so I can see from this is June as of the time this comes out, like this June all the way back to last June. So I can kind of see the trend over time. And so we can gain insights from those trends, right? So this is how we evaluate business performance, just sort of quickly knowing the things to look for to gain the insights. And then you as a CEO make decisions based off of those numbers. You either say, hey, everything's great, let's keep doing more. Or you say, hey, this could be better, let me fix it. The other part of money management is the actual cash management part. And that comes down to having a banking structure. I actually talked about this in, I think it was episode 5. I'm sure my podcast team will put this in the show notes. I think it was episode 5. I talked about how do you make money management easy. So go listen to that if you want to hear my philosophy on bank accounts. I like to keep it simple, but one bank account is not enough. So I personally have in my business an income account. I have an expense account. I have a profit savings account, and I have a tax account. I'm actually, now that I've recently hired a couple more team members in the last couple months, I'm really strongly considering adding a payroll account because hitting that payroll is like 30 grand a month, y'all. I want to make sure I hit that. And so I'm honestly thinking about splitting that out into a separate bank account too. If I do, I will let you know. I will update all of my stuff. At least within the course, I'll update my recommendations. I don't think that's necessary if you don't have a huge payroll. It's just, it depends, right? If you feel better knowing that you have that payroll money set aside, have a payroll account. So having a banking and cash management system enables you to make sure that you have enough money. Because like so many business owners, the vast majority just manage their business with one bank account. Actually, a lot of business owners put all of their business stuff through personal accounts, which obviously, if you've listened to the podcast, you know not to do that. Please open a business bank account. But one business bank account is not enough because what you do, and I want to know if this is you open up, you wake up in the morning, you open up your phone, you pull up your bank account balance and see what money got deposited today, what money came out, like how much money do I have left? Can I afford this thing? You try to manage your business based on what your bank balance is, except you forget that you have an auto draft coming out next week, or you have a customer that wants a refund, right? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when those surprise things come up? Like, we need to start managing our money a little bit differently to have, not to have savings, but so we don't run out of money. And also, it helps to build up your savings because when you implement that bank account system, it actually enables you to see more clearly, hey, I only need 30 days. Like maybe my 30 days of expenses is only 10 grand. I've got 15 in my expense account. I've got 5. What can I do with that 5? Put it into savings, invest it, put it into your retirement account, right? You can clearly see when you have excess, and it makes it so much easier to save and invest more. I say from experience. So that is it for the money management piece. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts to that, but high level, to make sure that you are able to manage your money, it comes down to taking the time to evaluate how your business is doing regularly, to understand the financial metrics you need to keep track of, and to manage your cash using a bank account system. You don't have to have like a fancy forecast spreadsheet or anything. We do that for our CFO clients, again, who have much larger, hundreds of thousands of dollars going in and out of the bank account every month. Like we need a spreadsheet to manage that. But, to scale up to 20, 25, 30K months, I don't think you need that. Okay. It can be a lot simpler than you probably think. And it is also so crucial to learn the skills because they will serve you as you grow. So that is it for part 3 of Make More Money. So just to revisit the, sustainable things, the things that you need in your business to be sustainable are a calendar or a schedule that works, that gives you time off, that gives you time to play, that doesn't have you in meetings all day, every day, right? Like we're going to come up with a schedule that actually works for you that you can do in the long run. We're also going to continue working on your mindset and implementing habits that wealthy people have so that you can start embodying that because that will help you to do the things that they would do, which will help you make more money, right? We're also going to look at your systems and processes. We're going to bite the bullet and document things as quickly and efficiently as we can so that when your support team comes in, Or even if you already have a team, like we're going to use your team effectively. We're going to have the systems and processes documented well. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be a book, just documented well. And then finally, implementing money management skills so that you feel comfortable knowing, do I have enough money to last? Am I making a profit? Are things good, or do we need to make a shift? Being able to identify and react quickly is so important, and it comes down to having those money management skills. So one final reminder as I wrap it up, this week we've kicked off the 6-figure profit blueprint. I would love for you to come join. If you are a service-based or online business owner and you are ready to scale your business and make a 6-figure paycheck, think about how much of an impact that would have on your life if by the end of the year, you're able to take home $8K, $10K a month, which is totally possible if you implement things, if you start now, okay? Think about the impact on your life. So if you are ready to have a 6-figure paycheck, to implement things to scale your business without having to work harder, without having to work longer hours and take on 5 times the clients, then go and apply for the 6-figure profit blueprint. Don't forget about the podcast bonus that I mentioned earlier in the episode. Send me a DM on Instagram, and I would love to have you. So go check that out at www.millionaireceo.co/6figures, or just go click on the link in the show notes, or just send me a DM on Instagram. That's also fine. I would love nothing more than to see you on the inside and to help you grow your business and make more money. And until then, I will see you back here next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Now, I want you to go take some action. What's one thing you can do this week to create more profit in your business? Send me a DM on Instagram at YoungCoCFO and share your action item with me. If you have a question or topic you'd like me to dive into, or if you're feeling empowered about taking charge of your finances, let's continue the conversation. Go to profitandprosper.co to submit a question or topic for me to talk about on the show. And because we all profit and prosper better with friends, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe wherever you listen, and share the episode. Make sure you tag me at YoungCoCFO on Instagram so I can give you some love, and I'll see you in the next episode.